This is Matt Conavay of Springfield Lawn Barber here at Breckenridge Estates for the Breckenridge Homeowners Association. Now what we're going to do is we're going to remove all the mulch from these 3 beds by the entrance. We're also going to remove the black vinyl edging. As you can see, it's starting to come up here and it's torn up in various areas along the edging. That will need replaced for sure. You can also see where it is coming apart, and we can't reuse that. Now when we're removing edging, it's simply taking a spade and spading out sections of edging. Then we run a bed edger along the edge to create a nice natural edge so that our stakes can get pounded in from the inside. Now there will be some topsoil needed on the outside of the bed here for backfill to hold this edge in. The rock on this side in the bed will hold that edge in place, and as long as it's staked in every few feet or so, this should give it a lasting impression for this bed. Now, as you can imagine, this mulch here is laid on pretty thick. It averages about 5 to 6 inches throughout all 3 of these beds. It's also composted at the bottom with a layer of dirt on top of the weed barrier here. So it will be a little more labor intensive to get this amount of mulch and dirt out of here, but can be done no problem. Now the weed barrier itself is the brands that you see at Menards and Lowe's. It's really thin, it's not quite as durable. It's not going to be well recommended for a rock job that will be going on here. You can actually see right through this weed barrier if you have it upright and you're looking right through it. We recommend a Pro 5 landscape weed barrier. It's the highest quality you can get on the market. It's a lot thicker than this thin stuff you can get at those brand stores, and it does a couple things for rock jobs. One, it keeps the rock from sinking down into the dirt, so it's a must-have for these rock jobs. Also, it keeps the weeds out a lot longer than this stuff. This stuff you have here really won't hold up to jagged rocks we'd be adding into the bed. So that's a must for all rock jobs. Now, upon digging down in this middle island bed, we came across some small trap rock beneath the mulch mixed in with the dirt. Now this will add to the degree of difficulty and add some time to the process of getting this stuff out of here, but it surely can be done. We also noticed some black vinyl edging within the bed, most of which is buried. That will need to come out. And all of these soaker hoses in the bed will also need to be removed and potentially replaced once we get new weed barrier down. Before we add rock. Now it's important to note that since the mulch is laid on so thick throughout these beds, that once it's removed there will be very little, if any, topsoil needed to be removed to get this bed to grade. It should grade pretty well with just weed barrier added and rock installed. Now the bed on Spruce Street is much the same concept. It's removing mulch, although not nearly as thick over here. The presence of plants all jammed in together does make it a little more difficult, not only taking mulch out, but installing weed barrier and then later rock. Difficult to avoid a lot of these plants. In their cutback state, they're really hard to damage or kill completely. That shouldn't really be an issue. The issue here is mostly just how time consuming it will be to get everything out and to do patchwork of weed barrier and then again installing rock while avoiding all of these plants. Another difference is there is no edge along here. There is a natural edge that had been cut. You can see it's outlived its useful life. So we would be taking the bed edger along the entire edge, cutting our natural trench to install a new black vinyl edge to hold all this rock in place. This is a mini bobcat. We'll be utilizing this tool in the bulk of the project, in both removing the mulch and adding new rock once the weed barrier is down. This is the Bobcat that we'll have on site to assist us in moving the large quantity of rock that we'll need for the project. Just so you're aware, this will not be used in the beds at all for any reason.
Okay, folks, I'm Ron Richardson. I'm the owner of Springfield Lawn Barber. I wanted to give you some addendum in regards to how we came up with the numbers that we have. In regards to the mulch itself, we calculated the square footage of the beds at 4,400 square feet. In our estimation, 25% of the area is covered by plants, which would reduce the total square footage to 3,300 square feet. In our estimation, the average depth of the mulch is about 4 inches or 1/3 of a foot. So the math works like this: roughly 3,300 square feet, you divide that by 3 to convert it to cubic feet, which would be 1,100 cubic feet. There are 27 cubic yards in a cubic, or 27 cubic feet in a cubic yard. So we estimate that we're pulling 41 yards of mulch out there, give or take a couple. That's where we come up with basically the amount of waste disposal, because we can dump about 10 yards per load. We've got to truck it to Evans in Springfield because we are not allowed to commercially dump in Chatham. In regards to the weed barrier, we use the 4,400 square feet, and even though the plants, we still have to cut around them. So, unfortunately, we don't save any weed barrier there, and it's very meticulous and time-consuming to cut around the plants properly. In regards to the landscape edging, we are using, 300 linear feet. So there's 300 linear feet, and we're going at $4 a foot, which is materials and labor installed. So that would be everything involved with doing that. And then lastly, in regards to the rock that goes in, we're using the 3,300 square feet, and we're using the lower end of the 60 to 70 square foot per ton of the large trap rock. So in our estimation, we need 57 tons. Now, I talked to our supplier, and we can get you a reduced price on the rock. We can get it to you at $75 a ton, which is $10 a ton cheaper because we're doing so much of it. And I just wanted to add that in there as an addendum to maybe answer your questions ahead of time for why we're charging what we're charging. One other thing, folks, in regards to the soaker hoses, in our opinion, there really is no reason to have soaker hoses in a perennial flower bed. We're willing to remove them, and they seem to be in decent condition, but we just don't see it necessary. We're not willing to take responsibility for them in terms of replacing them and guaranteeing that they work. And frankly, we just don't see them as being necessary at all. If you feel it's necessary, then we would have to set up an additional budget to purchase replacement ones, because surely they won't all work right after they've been moved. And then also for additional labor, which would be fairly considerable, probably 6 to 8 man hours, I'm guessing, to lay all that stuff out. Again, in our opinion, there just isn't any reason to use soaker hoses in a perennial flower bed that's well established.